is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820, WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, 2:04 the time. Glad you're along. Hope you had a great Easter. And, of course, we're back in the work week. 1-800-288-WBAP. 1-800-288-9227. Well, I'm pleased to be talking to this next guest. Most of you know, for about 16, almost 17 years, I broadcasted out of Southern California, specifically San Diego with KFMB. Know a lot of Border Patrol agents, have talked with them almost continuously for the last couple of decades. You know, these Border Patrol agents are probably some of the best trained law enforcement people we've got. And for a long time, the federal government made their job even more difficult. Hopefully that's starting to turn around, because with me right now is Agent T.K. Michael from the San Diego Border Patrol's office. Ms. Michael, thanks for being with me.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon.
It's good to be with you. It's so let's see. Let me guess. After 16 and a half, 17 years, I'm guessing the weather in San Diego is what, 74?
Not at this moment, surprisingly, but it'll get there by the end of this week.
You know, a lot of people don't realize, you know, they may go to San Diego for a long weekend or maybe a vacation or something. But if, you know, I was there, like I said, a long time. I flew back and forth, but people don't realize what that border crossing is like, whether it's San Ysidro or maybe something else. What is the current situation? I mean, when I was there, any given day, you know, people just walking across back and forth. What's the situation now with Trump's new agenda, if you will?
Well, with San Ysidro Port of Entry, that's the biggest land port of entry in the world. So just that alone, the coming and going from Mexico to the United States, it is a full-time operation. And I don't know the last time you were down there, but it has gone under tremendous construction.
Right.
And it is even expanding more so than it already is. So it is extremely busy port of entry.
Well, you know, Trump hits Mexico over the weekend. The weak border laws, the U.S. is being stolen. You know, there's any number of things that you could throw in there for discussion and probably be more right than you want to be. I know he budgeted for 100 miles worth of wall. To my understanding, that was just simply to repair what's already there. Is that not right?
Right. So what we have, especially and I'm talking about San Diego, is we are getting some of our walls replaced. The walls that we have in place right now are old landing mat fence that they were landing mats from the Vietnam era. And so we just repurposed those to use them as a barrier to start out with. And then we also have a steel mesh that, you know, these are all built in the 90s.
Right.
So needless to say that there's been many, many repairs made to each of those fences. And what we need is an upgrade in our infrastructure.
You know, and for those of you that don't know necessarily what she's talking about, if you ever see any video, those barriers that these are those landing mats that have the holes in them that are standing on end, you know, to say that, you know, we have an appropriate barrier is probably not correct. But I do know with all the technology, drones and all the other stuff, you know, to be honest, Agent Michael, do you have what you need to secure the southern border?
What we have is working, and it's proven to work. What we didn't have in the 90s was anything. So we were working with open areas, kind of like a free-for-all. So each addition to anything we have added, how small or big it is working for San Diego. We're slowly improving in our infrastructure. The technology is getting better. The roads, when I say infrastructure, that includes the roads that we're able to drive on. All of that combined, and then along with more manpower, it's getting better.
It's got a long way to go, though. I mean, just based on what I've read and what I see, and of course, I still touch base with a lot of people in San Diego. And as the crow flies, I think our studios were about 20 miles from the Mexican border. And people don't realize, they just don't realize how many miles of border we have. Well, Texas has got the lion's share, but,
yes.
What is it, 1,900, almost 2,000 miles? But
right.
if you look at this, pragmatically, what was it, 2-3 summers ago, that tsunami wave of Central Americans came pouring across, and we were outfitting, military bases to house these people until they could get vetted medically. But
right.
I mean, we've got another situation now, I'm told, where over 1,000 Central Americans are being allowed to just go through Mexico to the United States. That's pretty unusual for Mexico to allow that, isn't it?
Mexico has their own laws of immigration, and they necessarily don't allow people to stay in their country if they're not citizens either. So I don't think they care which way they go, whether it's north or south.
As long as they keep moving.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've gone through Mexico's immigration law. As a matter of fact, I did Mexico Immigration 101 on the air. I mean, we don't even have 20% of that. Let me ask you something, and unless you feel uncomfortable, answering, in which case, please don't. But is there any political will to secure and maintain the southern border? You would think, most people would think, after that second tower fell on 9/11, there'd be some type of political will to create a border where, quite honestly, except for you guys, what you do is phenomenal with what you've got to work with. But why is there no political will to secure the southern border?
Like you said, that's up for speculation. In my opinion, I represent the United States Border Patrol, and that is our job. That is our job, to protect America's borders. What we have here is very valuable to us and the American people, and we want to keep it that way. We want to keep our borders safe, and we go out there every single day ensuring that.
Very well said. Given your position, I appreciate that. If I were to ask you one thing, what do you need, Agent Michael, talking with Agent TK Michael from the San Diego Border Patrol Office, if I were to say and wave a magic wand, what do you need to do your jobs even better?
It's just not one thing. If there were, if we can have a magic wand that says we will build, any infrastructure you need, we still need the manpower in order to secure the border. Technology also is huge with how we do our day in and day out. We have now cameras that we're able to see at nighttime and sensors that we can place all over the actual border to know who's coming and going. It would be a combination of manpower. We can always use more manpower. We have a lot of area to cover, and that just doesn't include on the direct border, but up north and through our checkpoint areas as well. So technology can always be improved. We're always looking for something that we don't have yet.
Right. Well, listen, with Trump. Let me just ask it. I'll just throw it out there. Whether it's a wall, whether it's a fence, a barrier, do walls work in this particular situation?
Absolutely. San Diego sector, it has been proven time and time again that the infrastructure that was put in place in the 90s, it wasn't necessarily put there to stop the flow of traffic from coming in completely, because we know that doesn't happen, but it gave agents time just to get there and respond. Walls and infrastructure absolutely 100% work.
Agent,
the economy is growing. The safety of the people that are living amongst the border has gotten better. The value of properties has increased, and that's all due to the infrastructure that we were able to get.
Talking with Agent TK Michael from the San Diego Border Patrol Office. Agent Michael, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the direct answers to the extent you could give them. I understand your position. Wouldn't want to jeopardize that. Hopefully we can talk again.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Great talk.
2:13 the time. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP.
The goal for them is to raise awareness of these issues with the immigrants and what's happening right now from their point of view in Central America. And some, we're told, will make it to the U.S.-Mexico border, and they plan to seek asylum upon reaching there.
All right. Yeah, we're not even talking about Mexico now. We're talking about Central America, primarily from Honduras. These caravans, primarily immigrants from Honduras, are making their way through Mexico. As a matter of fact, Trump went off on Mexico, slamming Mexico, the Democrats' weak border laws. He basically said our country's being stolen unless Congress implements the nuke option to pass border laws. Trump's tweets, I guess, came a few hours, maybe 24, after other posts taking aim at Mexico and their lax border security. And if you read Mexico's immigration law, it's pretty easy to find. Simply Google Mexico's immigration law. You'll be amazed. You know, all of the tweets appeared to be sparked by, it was a news analysis about the caravan of immigrants heading to the U.S. border seeking asylum. Over 1,000 Central American immigrants, mostly Honduran, being documented in real time, which has a reporter embedded with the group, I think it's BuzzFeed, as it makes its way to the border. Well, you know, if this is not a slap in the face to your security and sovereignty, I don't know what is. A Border Patrol union leader said that the immigrants are being aided by Mexico. Normally, you don't get into Mexico, especially at the southern border. You may get shot, you may get put in prison, but you don't usually get a free pass. Well, for some reason, these are. Just like the Central Americans, what was it, 3 summers ago? You know, poured into the U.S., we had to, outfit military bases to house them and the children and vet them medically because they were bringing in diseases from Central America, Ecuador, and Honduras, and because they were bringing in diseases that we got rid of in the 50s. Here's the problem. All they have to do is cross 1 foot into the border with America, or what should be a border, and we have to take them into custody by the Border Patrol. If they ask for asylum or they say, I'm afraid to go back to my country, then we have to process them under credible fear, which allows them to be released into the country. They may show back up for a immigration hearing, they may not. Now, here's the weird part. The strange part to me is these thousands of people are coming over from Central America. These aren't people from Mexico. These are people from Central America. And Brandon Judd with the Border Patrol, made this statement. When they're asked, where are you going? Well, we're afraid to go back to our own country because of gangs and because of this and because of that. They say they're going to D.C., Washington, D.C., that D.C. has the highest concentration of these gangs that they say they're afraid of. So none of it makes sense. If you add 2 and 2, and more often than not don't come up with 4, then something is probably wrong. Just like this. Mexico is now aiding and abetting Central Americans to make their way into the U.S., knowing full well if they can just get 1 foot over the imaginary border, they have to be processed. I'm seeking asylum. It's too dangerous to go back to my country. San Salvador, Ecuador, Honduras, whatever it happens to be. Okay, where are you going? What are you afraid of? We're afraid of all the gangs and the violence and the beheadings and, well, that's rational. Where are you going? Washington, D.C. Did you know they have the highest concentration of the very thing you said you're afraid of? Yes, we knew that. Are you buying this? I mean, something should be. I know everybody gets on Trump about his tweets, and he basically threatened if Mexico continues to allow these people through the country into America, we're going to pull out of NAFTA. But that wouldn't break my heart at all. Pull out of NAFTA. It was one of the worst deals I've ever seen the U.S. make. Well, no, the Trans-Pacific Partnership was the worst. This is number 2. But shouldn't there be some consequence for action to Mexico? I mean, why would they? Normally, Mexico's southern border is like Fort Knox, man. You just don't get through because they didn't want, just like we don't want, tons of Central Americans pouring into the country. Not anymore. These caravans are allowed to go through Mexico, and it doesn't make any sense to anyone that observes this. You know, something should be done. So, you know, from my vantage point, you know, take the chains off of Trump, let him do what he's got to do, pull out an NAFTA, do whatever you want. I guarantee you, if you went to Mexico and said, look, this NAFTA thing that you guys love so much, that's a bad deal for us, we're going to withdraw completely and totally unless you stop aiding and abetting Central Americans through your country to come to America. Now, I don't think we're asking for much, are we? I mean, at the end of the day, don't we have a right? Maybe we don't. Maybe I took a nap and something happened when I was asleep. Does the United States of America not have the right to be a sovereign country? To be a secure country? Just like every other country on planet Earth? Maybe I'm just chasing ghosts under the bed. I don't know. Something must have happened. I don't sleep a lot, but when I do go to sleep, I'm out like a light. So something must have happened between the time I put my weary body in bed till the time I got up. No, there's no more sovereignty, no more security, no more sanctity. We're you know what we are? We're the world's doormat. We got a big welcome. You got to get real high. Take an aerial shot of the country, says welcome. We're a gun-free zone. We're dumber than a bucket of hair. We don't treat our people like they should be treated, but we'll treat you like kings and queens. All you got to do is get here. Am I missing the boat somewhere? All right. 2:32 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. Glad you're along. You know, let me boil this down for you so we don't have to talk about it for 3 hours. A lot of you took me to task when I said, unless you want to be talking about this 30 years from now, it's time to do something. There's no political will to do anything when it comes to illegal immigration. You know it. I know it. Let's stop dancing around the issue and just say it as plainly as we can. Politicians, be they Democrat or Republican, independent, doesn't matter. They have no vested interest in stopping illegal immigration. All right? Let's just be honest about it. Well, I'm a Republican and a conservative. Yes, amen. Okay, you're as guilty as everybody else. I'm a conservative too, through and through. But let's face it. Everybody knows it. No one is saying it. If we want to fix this, we have to take it back from D.C. You have to lobby at a state level. Texas has got, 2,000 miles of the border with Mexico? Everybody else much less. We've contacted the governor's office for immediate answers on what are the plans? What do you want to do? You know, talking about, the federal government's not going to do anything. They allowed this to happen. They knew what was happening. They're not going to do anything about this caravan of Central Americans going through Mexico either. So before you rip me apart again, what are you, some kind of liberal touting amnesty? I don't care what you call it. Call it residency. Give the Border Patrol what they need to control and maintain a southern border first. Numero uno. Then you vet the illegals that are here. If they're not criminals, they get to stay. They want to work towards citizenship, fine. They don't get to vote, obviously. They're not citizens. But we disarm the politicians treating illegal immigration like a cottage industry. No, I'm not for amnesty. In a perfect world, yeah, hey, we got a border. We don't, if you want to come in, you got to go through the old luck. If that's what you want, and if that's what I want, why do our elected representatives not want that? You got to ask the question. Why do we not have a southern border after all that's happened? After ISIS, after 9/11, after thwarting, I don't know how many other potential attacks through intelligence. Why do we not have a southern border? Because people make money off of it. That's why. And I got to be honest with you, most of the illegals here from Mexico, they're not gangbangers, they're not drug dealers, they're not trafficking human beings. They're here working to put food on the table for their families because they came from a corrupt country that we do business with, by the way, that leave them to live in abject poverty. So let's just stop playing with the subject. Take it back from D.C., lobby your individual state governor. What if you're a border state? What are we going to do? Well, we need the money we need Congress. Forget Congress. Congress isn't going to do anything. If they were going to do something, they would have done it a long time ago. Well, it's not just the Democrats, it's the Republicans too. You're never going to fix the illegal immigration problem playing political football with it. Well, I tell you what, if I tell the DACA folks that I'm for them, they'll vote for me. You see what happened? If you're a DACA recipient, you see what happened? Nothing. Fell through the cracks. It's a political leverage point. And quite honestly, I'm sick and tired of talking about it year after year after year. I mean, think of all the technological advances we've got in this country, but we can't figure out how to keep people out of the country? We can't figure out a border. Interesting. What would that look like? Well, it's a giant wall, or it's a line of drones, you're telling me the United States of America, the superpower of the world, can't figure out how to create and maintain a southern border. Don't tell me we got a drug problem in this country. Well, stop them at the border. You're going to still have a drug problem, just a different kind of drug problem. Don't. Just don't. Aren't you tired of talking about this? Wouldn't you like to get this fixed? Well, Rick, I'm a Republican, but the Democrats, they just won't let. It has nothing to do with partisan politics. There is no political will, period. Whether you've got an R or a D in front of your name, there's no political will to stop it. So take it back from the federal government. Stop playing politics with the sovereignty of the nation. Stop all this. Well, they're not here. They broke the law. It's a misdemeanor $250 fine. Does that sound to you like something anybody's afraid of? In Mexico, you go to prison. Or get shot, one or the other. With us, it's a misdemeanor, $250 fine. Does that sound like a immigration law that's got a lot of teeth in it? It's obvious to anybody that'll look. There's no political will to do anything. So if you want something done, take it back from the government. The government, quite honestly, if we continue down this road, there won't be a country. We'll just end up being a hodgepodge of, whatever happens. I don't want that. Do you? All right. Mike in Wichita Falls. Mike, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you doing?
Good.
Hey, what I want to mention to you is I'm all in favor of taking it back from Washington and letting our state, say here in Texas, build a border wall and take care of it and everything. However, if we took it from Washington, how long do you think it would take a politician in Washington to come into the state of Texas and file lawsuits and stuff to say, no, you can't?
About an hour and a half, the same length of time it took him to sue Jan Brewer, the governor of Arizona, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Right.
Exactly. Some battles are worth fighting, my friend.
Oh, I agree. But I'm just saying, I'm in favor of it. But if you want to see Washington take action, let us take it away from them, and you can watch them take action to file lawsuits saying that unconstitutional.
Well, they can do it all day long. You know, quite honestly, all I see out of D.C. are 535 politicians all trying to feather their political nest.
Yes,
that's what I see.
And it's about them. I mean, they have no core values, so it's about them. It's not about the U.S.
Well, you know why? We don't have there's no political will to fix this, but there are people in America that just see it black and white, and that's very rarely the way life works. I just got this in. You use on a regular basis the term undocumented immigrant. I very rarely use that, by the way. That gives you away, and whether they're gangbangers or rapists or not, none of them belong here. You are an illegal alien or illegal immigrant sympathizer. That's the reason we haven't fixed anything, is because of morons just like that.
Oh yeah, and they don't want to fix it. First of all,
no, I think they get a charge out of that. I think there's something about that, that same old vitriol that year after year, decade after decade. I don't know. Maybe they'd have to find a hobby if they couldn't talk. I get it. They broke the law when they came here, the immigration law. Speeding down the highway will get you a bigger ticket than crossing into the country. Now, that to me tells me everything I need to know. That tells me our elected representatives are not representative when it comes to illegal immigration.
Well, it's just be interfering with their voting public.
Well, yeah, that's it exactly. Bottom line is whatever will get them to vote is what they're going to do. I'm a sympathizer to the extent I'm sick and tired of talking about the same thing year after year after year, expecting D.C. to do something that they are never going to do. We got to be smarter than that. The fact is, that, we've got 11 or 12 illegal immigrants. You probably got twice that. Probably twice that, at least. And no, not all illegals are gangbangers or drug dealers or rapists or anything else. I mean, look around. Society isn't made that way. And not all people from Mexico have that rung on their DNA ladder. The fact is, most of them, the majority of them, are here trying to work and feed their families and escape a corrupt country that's corrupt from the top to the bottom, just like we soon will be if we don't do something. So, you want to sit and talk about illegal immigration for the next 3 decades? Be my guest. I, for one, would like to be a realist and say, okay, this is the problem we allowed to exist. We allowed to perpetuate itself. We allowed, and we still haven't done anything about it. I'd rather be a realist and say, here's the situation, let's fix it. What about holding Washington accountable? It's too late. Too late. All right. 1-800-288-WBAP. Illegal immigration will never, ever be resolved as long as we, the people, allow D.C. to use illegal immigration as a leverage point for votes. It's never going to happen. All right, 2:47 the time. Glad you're along. I'm not glad we're still talking about the same old thing, not because it's not important to the country, but we're like a dog chasing its tail. The politicians throw a bone out in the yard so the dogs can wag around, keeping them busy. All right, well, they think we're doing something. Okay, they think we're doing something. That's good. Not doing anything. Nothing. So in this omnibus $1 trillion package that we got enough money to repair fences for 100 miles of border wall. I call it I hate that term, border wall. We're not going to build a 10-foot high wall. It's not going to happen. But there are ways, just check around the globe, there are ways for countries to establish and maintain borders. We got out of $1.3 trillion. We got enough money to take care of 100 miles. Man, there's 2,000 miles of border with Texas and Mexico. So, this is my shocked look. There. You get that? I'm just saying, let's stop. Let's stop getting played by the politicians. They have no vested interest in solving, curing the illegal immigration problem. So if you want to do it, stop sitting there, get buses and round them up. We'll get rid of it. No, you won't. We can only pony up enough money to repair fences in 100 miles of border when there's over 2,000 miles in Texas. So you're telling me you're going to round up and deport 11 million people? No, you're not. But if it makes you feel better to say that, I'm an American, by God, get rid of them, then I'm sorry, you're laboring under a sad misconception. And you can call me, legal immigrant sympathizer. You can call me anything you want. But at the end of the day, it's true. It's reality. Our government allowed this to happen. They simply took advantage of the fact that we didn't care whether they came here or not. You might care, but you're not the one passing legislation. So either take a reality check. How do we fix this problem so that Rick's not talking about it 30 years from now? God, I hope I'm not behind this mind 30 years from now. Do you see what I'm saying? Ron and McKinney. Ron, thank you for waiting. I appreciate it. Hi, Ron.
Hey, it's good to talk to you, Rick. Listen, I sympathize with you very much about your frustration on this. I would also apply it to many other points. But I was wanting to ask you if you have any inkling as to whether or not it's possible to educate the younger generation behind us so that they can have enough solid willpower to rout out politicians that are doing the kinds of things you're talking about, simply delaying and distracting and playing shell games with political issues that are really crucially important. Do you have any idea of how we could actually educate the young and unify them in sufficient numbers to actually get something done about cleaning Washington out?
I don't think so. Not right now.
I agree with you. I can't think of anything that would be sustained where we could sustain interest long enough in enough people to actually get something done. And I think the Washington politicians know that, so they just play word games and shell games and distract and delay, and then they just want us to go away is what they really want us to do.
That's true. They want us to shut up, sit down, vote for them once a year, and send them our taxes. They don't want our input. They don't want our help in governing the country. They just want us to fund everything.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And it's here's the thing. We didn't dumb down, and I'm not using that in a mean-spirited way. I'm using it in a literal way. We didn't dumb down an entire generation of young people overnight. We're not going to re-educate them to the truth overnight. I mean, look at it right now. You've got, 15, 16, 17-year-olds that think the NRA is Satan incarnate when the NRA had nothing to do with any school shooting.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much propagandistic news reporting that young people don't even have any inkling as to what real Americanism is because of the educational system.
Absolutely not. Go to an 18-year-old and start talking the Constitution. You're going to get a deer in the headlight. Look, it's not their fault. They're not taught it. Look what the state of public education is in. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation if we just graduated. We wouldn't. Well, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. It's a sad thing. So, we have to somehow, people that have been a little older and had a little more understanding and knowledge, we've somehow got to be able to talk to the people in our warm circle, and each one of us try to do something to multiply ourselves so that when this older generation is gone, there are some younger people that still have a little bit of savvy and can maybe provide some restraint, hopefully, on runaway government.
It's not time to give up.
No.
But by the same token, wishing that something were not the way it is not the answer either.
Absolutely, we can't live on pipe dreams, but we can't be fatalistic either. And so it's kind of a long-term strategy that we need to adopt. And I think each one of us needs to be somewhat vocal, especially among people with whom we have influence, family members, close friends, young people, show interest in young people, talk with them, give serious conversations to them, ask probing questions, and, a little bit of the Socratic method,
yep.
and do things that will help provoke them to think further than tomorrow. I had an interview. I was playing golf with a couple of young men the other day, and I just wanted to ask them what their millennial opinion of Donald Trump was. And would you believe, and I've been doing this with several people, these two young guys, they're in their late 20s. They're both blue-collar workers, very fine young men. But they said, you know what, I just don't care. He's a politician. And that kind of apathy. So I tried to talk with them a little bit about it, and they were just almost like almost inert or like deadhead. And so somehow we need to be able to awaken younger people and help them to think again and to think deeply about what tomorrow may hold if we continue today's policies.
Amen. And again, this is not happening by accident. I was talking to a friend of mine. He was taking his daughter to school or picking her up from school or something. Anyway, they were just talking, and they had the radio off. And hopefully it wasn't during my day part. But in any case, he was talking to his 12-year-old daughter. Trump came up, and his 12-year-old daughter said, yeah, Trump's a racist. I mean, she's 12. And he said, well, sweetie, why do you say that? My teacher said he's a racist, so he's a racist. I mean, as long as you've got, they're already working on the generation behind this generation. So it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take everybody, with the truth banner waving. Don't watch television. Don't listen to your teachers. I don't know what the answer is to get the message out. I've often thought, I know I got a break. I love what I do behind this mic. And I do what I can do with the 3 hours I have every day. I've often thought, not that I'm looking for something else to do or I'm busy enough, but I've often thought about doing a podcast just on how to be an American and starting with the perceived intelligence of a graduating senior and moving forward. I don't know. That may be an effort in futility, but I've given it a lot of thought.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, I've got to change that open. Go ahead and bring the music down, Randy, I got to change that open. I don't think it applies anymore. I'm gonna ask Randy to re-cue that. I want you to listen. I didn't come up with this just willy-nilly. Oh, that's got a good beat. I give it a 3. You can dance to it. That's not the way I picked out my bumper, all right? I listened to the words. Big and Rich used to be on the show a lot, long time ago. And Rich said, hey, you need to listen to this. It's off the CD Horse of a Different Color. And this is a portion of that song. And when I listened to it, I said, yeah, man, you're right. It says exactly what I want it to say. Like I said, bumper music to me is like a diving board into a pool, right? Go ahead, Randy. Go ahead.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
All right, here you go. Listen.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
All right. A few 100 million more like me trying to keep it free. Well, if we're truly trying to keep it free, we got to send a message to D.C. loud and clear. We get it. We know what's going on. There is no political will to create a southern border, or it would have been done, a couple days after 9/11. There's no political will. Republicans and Democrats, neither one want to do it. And you're chipping away at the nation's history. And by the way, I agree. Some of it wasn't too great. Pretty dark period in American history. As a matter of fact, I defy you to find any country on planet Earth that didn't go through some dark times when it first established its country. All right? In some countries are still in that area. But We just went through, well, no, we can't have any Confederate monuments. That offends somebody. You knew it was just a matter of time. Tick-tock, baby. After Confederate statues are removed, now cities are moving to tear down monuments seen as offensive to Native Americans. Outrage from Native Americans. Coming from Oklahoma originally, I dealt with this more often than not on the South Oval at Oklahoma University. Native Americans trying to right historic wrongs. They were given, tuition grants. They were given monthly or daily stipends to live. It was like they had everything, but they weren't going to class. They were just protesting for more stuff on the South Oval. Not all, but some. Outrage from Native American activists. It's always the activist, isn't it? These guys that can't find a job, and their supporters has led a liberal California city closer to tearing down what they considered as offensive monuments. And I thought, well, okay, well, that's interesting. What did Native Americans find offensive? Is it Wounded Knee? Is it the Trail of Tears? No, it's President William McKinley. All right, what'd he do? In the latest in a string of moves to get rid of monuments decried as offensive to Native Americans, coming after the nationwide controversy over statues of Confederate leaders, the activists, and I think it's Arcata, if I'm not mistaken, Arcata, California, that's about 300 miles north of San Francisco. They wanted the city's 8.5-foot bronze statue of McKinley taken down because they said the 25th president of the United States was a proponent of settler. I can't even believe this. He wanted to colonize the West for settlers. So he savaged and raped and killed the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous People, told the LA Times. I didn't know that. I didn't know McKinley was a rapist or killed people, or what they're talking about is the settling of the country. Yeah, Native Americans were here first. They got a raw deal. They got a bad deal. Even to this day, they probably got a bad deal. I don't know. The casinos ought to help a little bit, you think? And if you're a member of the tribe, if you're on the roll, you get a cut. But there's no doubt that, like slavery, the Native Americans got a raw deal. Just living off the land and all that, and here comes the cavalry and, mows them down. I get it. I understand. But as I said with the Confederate monuments, I'll tell the Native Americans, you can't airbrush out of history those things that make you uncomfortable. Those are lessons learned in history. If you wipe them out, then how are you going to know about it? Crickets. That's all I got. Crickets. Do you see what I'm saying? The very darkest depths of American history, in many cases, is just as important as the good stuff. Because you need to know what happened. You need to know why it happened, how it happened. Well, I'm uncomfortable. Well, I'm offended. You don't have a constitutional right to not be offended. It's not in there. I looked. You have to tell the bad with the good. In February, the city council of this sanctuary city, they voted 4-1 to get rid of that statue. Is there a difference between honoring McKinley and Robert E. Lee? They both represent historical pain. We have become a nation. What word can I use without getting an FCC violation? Victims, to be sure, wussies. I've heard the kids use that term. Pansies, there's another one. Snowflakes. See, that's more apropos for young people. But that's what we are. What happened to the men of the country? What happened to people saying, you know what? This happened historically, and it was bad. But you need to know what happened. No, I can't. I know what you're... Well, we don't want to repeat history. We could never repeat that. But the mindset is what I'm talking about. Where is it written that history only has to make you feel good? History is just that. You know what history is? It's rolling out truth as it occurred in any given thing. You can't go back and change it. It happened the way it happened. You can learn from it. It can spur ideas. It can change mindsets, but it's like rolling out a carpet. That's what history is. It's like rolling out a carpet of pure, unadulterated truth at the time. And it's not all good. Arcata, according to the newspaper, I got a break, I know that. I get off on a roll and I just don't want to stop. Arcata, according to the newspaper, was the first American city to ban the sale of genetically modified foods. Well, there you go. Everything's fine now. The first to elect a majority Green Party city council, and one of the first to allow marijuana farming before marijuana was legal. Now it would be the first. It's going to be the first city to rip down a presidential statue. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. Doing something for the sake of doing it doesn't impress me at all. All right. 13 minutes after the hour. I know. The SWAT team's coming in. I'm a minute and a half late. Randy, go ahead and take this. We'll come back. We'll take your calls in the court of public opinion on News Talk 820 WBAP. All right. Welcome back. Well, it was bound to happen, right? After the Confederate statue controversy that washed over the nation coast to coast, now cities are moving to tear down monuments that are offensive to Native Americans. I just told you about this one city, Arcata, California. It'll take 8 months, and this is truly California. It'll take 8 months to remove the statue of President McKinley, with a total cost of about $65,000, because they have a lengthy environmental review that's required by the state law. The statue has been in Arcadia Plaza since 1906, according to the newspaper. A local businessman gave it to the city to honor the first modern president. McKinley, no argument here, was an expansionist president, born in Ohio, assassinated, you may recall, in his early in his second term. Died about 8 days later, I think. The native people here, here's the activist, the native people here have avoided the town square for years. This is Ted Hernandez. Doesn't sound like a, well, he's the chairman of the 620-member Wyatt tribe. It's a reservation about 20 miles south of the city of Arcadia, north of San Francisco. Why do we have this man, McKinley, standing in the square where they used to sell our children? Well, listen, this one guy in the city's been, I guess, gathering signatures for a ballot to take down the statue. Certainly, by today's standards, these people have a different way of looking at things. But looking at Abraham Lincoln by today's standards, you could also say he was a horrible racist. Oh, but he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. No, he only did it after a solid military victory. He used it politically just like they use things politically now. Well, I'm not going to get into that. The activists say they were spearheaded by a wave of protest over Confederate monuments across the U.S. There you go. And the murder of 9 black people in a church in South Carolina. And again, after last year's violent protest in Virginia. More than 25 cities across the U.S. have removed or relocated Confederate statues and monuments. It was intense. I'm offended. Okay, well, what can we do? Tear that monument down. Okay, well, we'll get right on that. I'm sorry. I don't support this. Well, you're a racist then. No, I'm a realist. And like I said, history is blatant truth. Good, bad, or indifferent, there it is. But I'm uncomfortable. Well, get a blanket or something. I mean, there is no constitutional right for you to be comfortable all the time. There is no constitutional right for you to not be offended. It's not there. What's happened to this country? What happened to the men in this country? What happened to the backbone, the spirit, the philosophy, the very thing that built this nation and has maintained it all these years? What happened to that? You know, I can't think that they're all high in Colorado. There's got to be something going on. Little by little by little, we chip away at the American spirit. We chip away at critical thinking. We chip away at self-reliance and turn towards D.C., just like those kids did a couple Saturdays ago. Help us right the wrongs of America. In March, San Jose City Council got rid of a statue of Christopher Columbus from the lobby of its city hall in Baltimore because he was terrible. He was a bad man. We want to reflect current day values, not the horrific history of yesteryear. The Columbus statue in San Jose was moved to the Hall of Italian American Heritage Foundation. The city of Kalamazoo, Michigan, they're going to remove a park monument of a Native American in headdress kneeling before a westward-facing pioneer. Somebody found that offensive. What's happened to this country? Government reliance at the city, the county, the state, and the federal level. And the worst is the federal level. Rick, are you an anti-government? No, I'm not anti-government. I just want them to do their damn jobs. They're not here. The founders specifically set the Constitution up so they wouldn't be lorded over by a king. And that's essentially where we're going. I mean, we've come full circle. I don't know how we turn this thing around, quite honestly. All right, let's go to Jordan in Willis Point. Jordan, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Jordan?
Hey, Rick, I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay.
It is the emasculation of the American male, and for that matter, worldwide. But especially here, and I'm not going to fault the feminist movement, but it has gone way too far. We are now telling boys and young men that something as benign as chewing a gun into your Pop-Tart is bad behavior. And so where do boys have to turn? They have nothing. They have no outlet for testosterone. They have no outlet for androgen. They have no outlet for who they are biologically. And that's how the left wants it.
It's funny you said that. I remember, just various things, not wall to wall, but I remember being in kindergarten. And at kindergarten, I think you got milk and a graham cracker. It was a big graham cracker. And all of us guys, kids, children, would chew the corners off so it looked like a gun and we'd, play shoot each other. And, not one of us actually ended up shooting anybody.
I used to do the same thing. We pointed fingers at one another and went bang, bang, and we fell down dead. And even the little girls would play in it because they wanted to be part of it. They wanted to be part of something. But the left, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. What you need to do is hang on to your femininity, but I want you to adopt a bunch of masculinity to show these men that they're not needed.
Well, not only that, but as I look, take down the Confederate statues, take down the Native American offensive statues, take these down, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. What do you get from D.C.? Nothing. You get nothing. Because the more separated we become, the more we get obsessed about these things of history, the better off they are. The better off they are. When I come back, and if you're Native American, no offense. If you're black and you don't like Confederate statues, no offense. But I'm going to show you what I'm much more worried about than a statue sitting in a city park someplace. I'll show you exactly what I'm concerned with. All right, 3:32 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion. Your voice, your opinion, your attitude on the issues of the day. I just was challenged via email about Lincoln. He wasn't a racist. He didn't do anything wrong. He stopped slavery. Okay, I'll tell you the truth about the Emancipation Proclamation in just a second. I'll tell you what I'm worried about. More than illegal immigrants working from sunup to sundown, trying to put food on their table for their family, having left a corrupt country from the top down that we do business with at a federal level. I'll tell you what I'm more concerned with than them. You know, if you stand back, if you can possibly do that, stand back from your own bias. And by the way, don't say, I'm not biased. Yes, you are. We all are. Stand back from your own bias. You know, get rid of the blinders, the tunnel vision, and look at the big picture. I'm more afraid of our federal government and what they've done to turn this country into a nanny state. I'm more afraid of that than people simply coming here to put food on the table for their kids. What am I talking? Well, what are you talking about, Rick? This is the land of the free, home of the brave. Well, it was until Washington decided, you know what? All we have to do is make all the 300 million people in this country somehow, some way, at some level dependent on federal government, and we got them. Certainly have their vote. Won't get pushback if sustenance is coming from us. What am I talking about? I'm talking about all the government programs. The government, as I've told you 1,000 times, has no money. They can't give anybody anything in cash or in the form of a program without first taking it from someone else. Probably you. You know what EBT is? Electronic Benefit Transfer? Why do we even go to EBT? No, I don't want to do the food stamps, don't want to do the welfare checks. It hurts their self-esteem. It's polarizing. It pulls them out of the crowd. Give them a credit card. Call it EBT. What am I more afraid of than illegal immigration? The federal government and their own programs.
EBT is basically about electronic benefit transfer, and it's basically about welfare and having children and just for money, just for the state. So the state of California can pay for WIC, GR, food stamps, daycare. I mean, the state of California, if you want EBT, the state of California is the best place to get your money. They'll pay you the most, and yeah, it's like $221 for GR and about $179 for food. That's for each person. So, yeah, you get free daycare, you get free food. You can go to fast food restaurants now. Domino's Pizza is accepting EBT. McDonald's, I haven't saw a sign for McDonald's. Subway, you can take your EBT card. Like, you get $221 in cash. You get free daycare. So if you have 4 kids or 6 kids, you get money for free daycare. So all of them can go to daycare. And most people, they have their friend as the daycare person, and they split the money. I heard all about it. And they split the money for that. And then you have the cash that they give you, and then the lights and gas and the free home. Who would want to work in America? This is what the taxpayers are paying for.
Who would want to work in America? That's what the taxpayers are paying for. Well, what does that say to you? Just the words are bad enough. But the mindset is, it's okay. This is what the taxpayers are paying for. There's not a problem. Remember what she said? This is how you get your money. The mindset is, you owe them. Now, who created that mindset? Who created the mindset that someone would say, well, you get 4 kids, you get this much, you get 6 kids, you get that much. Basically, they turn children into a cash crop. The federal government did that. Why? For the vote. Politics has become the new theology, the new religion of America. Did you hear any shame in that? Did you hear any accountability in that? No, it was an instructional video originally to help people get money from the federal government. And the federal government wrapped their arms all around that. Why? The more people that do that, the more people they control. Do you see what I'm saying? That scares me much more than somebody coming into the country, a misdemeanor, trying to work, whether it's labor or something else. That concerns me more. That an illegal is an individual. The vast majority of illegals are here just trying to raise their family, go to school, and all that. Well, they broke the law. They broke a misdemeanor. You probably have done that in the last month. Punishable by a $250 fine. You know, that is understandable. What you just heard is not. That's the federal government dumbing people down, controlling people through controlling their lives. You know, forget George Orwell's 1984. That's it. Right there. Reducing having babies to a cash crop and say, hey, just come to the government. We'll take care of you. Your housing, your food, your entertainment, your schooling. We'll take care of it all. We just ask that you go into that little voting booth and check the box that we want you to check. That scares me much more than illegal immigration. All right, let's go to Javier in Dallas. Thank you for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing?
Yeah, no problem. How are you?
Good.
Hey, I was telling your producer I was an illegal worker for 13 years, and now I've been in the United States for 21 years. I've only been without a job for 10 days.
You've been without a job 10 days in 21 years?
Yes. So everybody's saying stuff about not getting a job or anything. I have to say that's BS.
Okay, well, let me ask you something, Javier. Why have you not worked toward your citizenship?
No, I am a citizen. I've been a citizen since 2015.
Forgive me, I missed that part. So you are a citizen now?
Yes, I was an illegal worker for 13 years.
Okay.
But now I've been a citizen for 8 years or something like that.
What? And are you trying to assimilate into the? Well, you've been here 20 years. I would imagine that you have assimilated into the country, right?
Well, let me tell you, I'm having my first son in May. He's already an NRA member. I'll tell you that. But here's the point that I wanted to make. What I wanted to say was, you want to stop illegal immigration from Mexico? It's easy. Round up every SOB senator or congressman getting kickbacks from the Mexican government because they're helping cover up all the money that they get from the oil of Mexico, the precious metals of Mexico, the electric power of Mexico, and they are using the dollars going from Mexicans here, going back to Mexico to cover up their own bank accounts in Switzerland.
Well, Javier, look, there's no doubt that politicians don't want to stop illegal immigration. You know, they'll throw you a bone once in a while to make you think they might be able to do something. They're never going to do anything. They don't want to. It's a cottage industry. Well, listen, Javier, I'm glad that you're now a U.S. citizen. You know, that's what it's all about. I mean, at this point, if you're going to be a realist, you got to look towards D.C. and say, hey, there's too many people getting rich off this. They're not going to stop it. So the only way to stop it is bring it back to a state level, the border states. Codify the federal law and say, okay, we're going to enforce our own border. And the illegals that are already here, unless they have a criminal background, the criminals got to go. The MS-13 and all the rest, they got to go. That's a lot more doable than trying to cut a swath through the United States with 11, 15, 20 million people. If you're contributing to society, you're working, going to school, all right, we're going to give you residency. I won't use the word amnesty because that sends people into a spiral and, they lose their minds. Call it residency. Not a citizen, so you can't vote, but you can work towards it if you want and assimilate into the country. I appreciate the call, Javier. Thank you very much. It's that EBT thing gives me nightmares because that's not an illegal. That's not a foreign country. That's not an invading army. That's not a terrorist. That's the federal government that created that. You know, the girl that's speaking on that, she didn't come up with that on her own. She didn't start that policy. She didn't pass that legislation. Like the illegals, she's simply taking advantage of something the politicians did. Man, if that didn't scare you to death, Why would anybody want to work in America? That's what the taxpayers are paying for. Do you realize what kind of mindset it takes to even make that statement? All right, 3:47 the time. You know, this was not intended to be a sky is falling show. But folks, the nation hangs in the balance. Your kids' future, certainly their kids' future. And the Democrats have you right where they want you. Liberalism, and I've said this many times, liberalism run amok, unchecked, will kill you and a nation just as sure as a round from, as the kids put it, an assault rifle. And the Democrats are playing right into it. Remember Dirty Harry Reid? Remember Dirty Harry? Went home for a holiday and got in a tussle with one of his family members, wearing shades from then on. He made up the story. Weight fell on him in the weight room. Have you seen Harry Reid? I don't think he can even spell Jim. But having said that, he left a multimillionaire. Now, how did he do that? That's I know what these guys make. How does he do that? Well, Rick, I believe the politicians, they want the country to survive. They want us to be safe and secure. What are you talking about, Rick? I don't agree. Harry?
Remember, had we done comprehensive immigration reform, we wouldn't be having this issue. And everyone here, the border is secure. Martin Heinrich talked to the caucus today. He's a border state senator. He said he can say without any equivocation, the border is secure.
The border is secure. That's like me saying, hey, coming up at 5 o'clock, I'll be jumping off the American Airlines Center because I can fly. How stupid must these people think we are? All right, Bob in Irving. Bob, thank you for waiting. Thanks for your patience. How you doing? Hello, Bob.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Can you hear me?
I got you fine.
Okay, it's very interesting. You talk about taking down the statues, and, if they want to take them all down, take down Martin Luther King and all of them, and, let's just forget about history. And, as one professor told me at one time, the only thing we learn from history is we learn absolutely nothing from history.
Okay, say that again. The only thing we learn from history is we learn absolutely. I don't
nothing.
get that. I don't understand that.
We don't learn from history because we keep repeating it. Look at what they're doing right now to. The government controlled all the people in Germany. Look what happened to the Jews and that group of people. They took away all the guns, so people could not defend themselves. And what happened? The only people who had guns was the government, which is the very thing that they're fighting for right now. They're trying to take away guns from people so they can't defend themselves.
Yeah, but this is so much. Forgive me for stepping in, but this is so much larger than guns. I mean, this is a total mindset that has washed over America, where people think they have a right for their very existence, the very sustenance from you if you're working. And the government did that. They didn't do that.
Well, you also once said that when 56% of the people are on the takes from the government, the people who are working can never vote them out. And I think we're quickly coming to that point where the people who are working can no longer, can't vote the people out who are doing this. When Paul robs Peter to pay Paul, it doesn't take very long before there's no hope for anybody to try to repeal this stuff.
Well, you think about it for a second, Bob. What is generally speaking, what's the platform for Republicans? They want to give you opportunity, not cash and a credit card and a house and food and an education. They want to give you opportunity. Now, what you do with it is up to you. If you're sleeping till noon, walking to the check once a month, to the mailbox once a month to pick up a check, there's not much they can do for you. And those are generally people, or very young, those are generally people that hate Republicans. You want old people to eat Alpo. Where'd they get that? The benefits are there for the old folks. But that's generally, I mean, if I had to sum it up in a sentence, that's what Republicans offer, an opportunity. Not a guarantee, but an opportunity. What's the Democratic base? How much stuff can I give you to get your vote? Very clear to me. And, of course, when you have a situation with no rules, regulations, guidelines, parameters, do whatever you want as long as it's okay with you. As long as you have that, you're going to have corruption. You're going to have liberalism run amok. That's why ex-Supreme Court justices, get rid of the Second Amendment. It's old, like me. We don't want to. Hello? A former Supreme Court justice calls for the repeal of the Second Amendment. We still have guns in this country? It's insane. Please don't tell me, well, the Republicans aren't progressive enough. The Democrats want to give us free education. They want to give those that can't help themselves can always count on the Democrats. Really? They can count on the Democrats taking from one person, giving to another. If you look up income redistribution, there's the Democratic Party right there. How do 535 people sitting in the District of Columbia, the nation's capital, think that they can make decisions for 300 million of us? You know what I want? I want public referendums on everything. Well, Rick, that would be too much trouble. More trouble than rounding up on 22 million people? 11, 15 million people? No, it wouldn't. All you would do is take the teeth out of politicians. But think about that. 100 senators, 435 U.S. reps, 535 people make all the decisions for 300 million. No wonder this country's so corrupt.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820, WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, 4:03 the time. Let me, if I may, give you a prime example of what America has become. There are no rules, regulations, guidelines, parameters, a few here and there. No consequence for action, to be sure. No responsibilities are taught with the rights that we are given. He was 16 when he and a group of friends stole beer from a store, then had a party at his parents' home. Then they decided to go for a drive. He struck and killed 4 people on the side of a road near Burleson. That's a suburb of Fort Worth, if you're not from the area. A passenger in his car was paralyzed and suffered brain damage, killed 4 other people. He had a blood alcohol level of 0.24, 3 times the legal limit in Texas. He pled guilty in 2013 to 4 counts of manslaughter in a juvenile court. He was 16. He killed 4 people, forever changed the life of one of his passengers by paralyzing him and giving brain damage. He got 10 years probation. Prosecutors were trying to get a 20-year prison sentence. The victims' families were outraged, as you probably would be. They felt he got special privilege. Now, what were they talking about? Ethan Couch. He was raised wealthy, so he didn't know the difference between right and wrong. This is the affluenza. You just heard Eric Bushman in the WBAP newsroom talking about it, being released. He's 20 now. He became known as the affluenza teen after a psychobabble expert suggested during his trial that growing up with money might have left him with psychological afflictions. What were those psychological afflictions? He was too rich to tell right from wrong. He was too privileged. He was too coddled. He was too wealthy. He couldn't even do the 10-year probation. He and his mom fled to Mexico in an effort to evade possible jail time. So he served his 720-day sentence in Tarrant County in a jail. And he's been freed about a week before his 21st birthday. If I were to try and find a story, and I try to immerse myself in stories every day, 5 days a week, I try to take some time off on the weekends, but it's tough sometimes. If I were to draw on a story in my 20-plus years in radio and television that showed just how far down this country has gone, this would be it. This would be the one. No consequence for action. No sense of responsibility. 4 people are dead. Another one paralyzed and brain damaged. He can't even abide by the probation. And his mom sort of shows what a lot of that is. She got arrested. She failed a drug test. There you go. That's how bad. You know, the problem with this country is that everybody has a right. Nobody has a responsibility. All right, let me get to your calls. Jackie in Denison. Jackie, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Jackie?
I'm doing fine. Hello?
Yes. Hello, Jackie. All right, we lost Jackie. Paul in Dallas. Paul, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Paul?
Doing good, Rick. How was your Easter, sir?
It was good. It was nice and relaxing. How about you?
It was great. Went fishing, hung out with my kids. It was nice. I got away from Facebook for a while. So.
Yeah, don't go there for a while.
Hey, a couple things. You're talking about this influenza kid. Maybe that's possibly what's wrong with our congressmen and our senators is they've become wealthy and they don't understand right from wrong anymore. That's just a guess on that. But I had met a lady this weekend. We had to run to the local Walmart out where I was, and she was 2 years old and working.
Okay, I tell you what, Paul, you're cutting in and out on me really, really bad. I'm going to put Paul on hold, and let's see if we can get a better. Well, we lost Paul too. All right. Let's go to Jackie in Denison. Jackie, let's try that again. Hello, Jackie.
Hello. I'm calling about the invasion that's going on our southern border that's being perpetuated by a hostile Mexican government. And I don't understand why everybody's just accepting that once they touch our soil, then they get to come into our country. Why isn't our president declaring a halt to immigration, or Governor Abbott if they're coming in through Texas, or Congress calling an emergency session?
Well, Congress isn't doing anything. You know that.
I know, and we should be burning our phones up. We
should be. I say it every day, but it's, I don't know why it worked when Bush tried to give an amnesty. Remember that? They're just here doing jobs Americans won't do. Not once, but twice, Americans figuratively burned down the switchboard at the White House. Now I guess we've gotten to the point where we just accept anything that comes along. It's very difficult to get anybody to do anything.
Well, this is a test. And what are we going to do when there's 12,000 coming in? I mean, it's time to turn these people around and say, we're not going to be your doormat anymore. And Mexico needs to be made to pay for this direct slap in the face. And I don't see why the president can't halt immigration on our southern border until we get this fixed.
Well, it's been done before in our nation's history. The thing I don't understand, this isn't about people coming here from Mexico now. This is about caravans moving through Mexico to the U.S. from Central America, primarily Honduras. And I'm not exactly sure why Mexico is being so apathetic about, generally, Mexico's pretty tough on immigration. Really tough. Just Google Mexico's immigration law and sit down with a cup of coffee and read it. It'll open your eyes. Congress isn't going to do anything. And I don't, I've been talking for what, 2.5 hours about the reason. No political will, people making money off of it. That's why, Jackie. That's why. So the only way to affect some kind of solution is to take this away from the federal government, codify the federal law about securing and the sovereignty of the nation, codify it to a state level like Jan Brewer did in Arizona, even though the government sued her. Think about this. Jan Brewer codifies a federal law to protect the southern border of her state. And then the federal government sues her for doing their job. How much more proof do you need? They don't want to secure the southern border. All right, 17 minutes after the hour. Let's see if we can get Paul back on the air. Paul, how you doing?
Good. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Hey, what I was saying is this weekend I went out of town and had to go to a local Walmart to get some things. And the lady working the register was 82 years old. And there wasn't anybody behind me, so I thought, wow, I've got to find out about this lady because 82 years old and still working, that's, an anomaly. So I said, why are you still working at 82? She said, sweetie, I've got bills to pay. And I thought, 82 years old, you would think, she'd sit on her laurels and, take Social Security and whatever retirement. And she goes, why would I want to do that? There's too many people in this world that need to be supported. And I went, wow.
Yeah.
It just kind of goes to show, what I was saying about the influenza thing earlier before I got off my signal was, maybe our congressmen are suffering from that too. They don't know right from wrong anymore. And because it just seems to me it's too easy for people to come over here and do nothing, come through our borders illegally and then basically be praised and rewarded for breaking our laws. I mean, it's kind of it's just backwards. It's as backwards as it can possibly be.
No, you're right. It's not a matter of politicians knowing right from wrong. They must know that to work the system where it benefits them. It's a matter of there are rules that you and I go by to raise a family, to work, to try and succeed if we possibly can. The rules don't apply to that bubble in D.C. It's a whole different dynamic. And you and I and everyone listening, we are the fodder for the operation that they run. 535 people make all the decisions and laws for $300 million. Does that make sense?
No, not really. What kind of shocks me is you have people going to college to get education to not really produce anything or do anything or create anything. I don't know why they're going to college because you have all these college graduates coming out with no skills.
No, I tell you, in a ton of debt that somebody else will probably end up paying for. Paul, you're absolutely right. I'm glad you got back in. Told you just a little bit ago, we were talking about the Confederate monuments coming down. Now the Native Americans, they want monuments that are offensive to them to come down, like President McKinley and I guess some others. And, that's a slippery slope. I mean, everybody's going to find something that offends them. And I made the statement that, if you wanted to, by today's standard, you could call President Lincoln, the president that signed the Emancipation Proclamation, a horrible racist, by today's standard. But that's not the way you view history. As I said before, at the risk of being redundant, history is like a carpet that you roll out that is nothing but pure unadulterated truth, good, bad, and indifferent. To take anything away from it is to take away from your history. That doesn't make sense. But I said that about Lincoln, and oh man, you thought I would have said I'm coming to take the firstborn male child in every family. Well, you could, by today's standard, call Lincoln a racist. His decision to issue the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, after the tactically unsatisfying victory by the Union Army, it was intended to bring the issue of slavery into the war. The original intent was not to free the slaves. That's not why the Civil War was fought initially. It was to keep the Union together. That's what it was all about. But then, well, actually, you need to know that the Emancipation Proclamation was issued twice. Once in 1862 as a threat to the southern states, and then finally in 1863. But it was supposed to add a moral element to the Union cause. But in doing so, it was also meant to challenge the morality, are you ready, of both Britain and France, both of which had banned slavery at that time. And he didn't want them to have any thought or to even entertain recognizing the Confederate government. He didn't want them involved. So, even though that vital recognition was to Richmond, even that would not have necessarily meant material support. So in the case of France, opinion was divided between the nobility of France and its Republicans over the politics and the principles of war. It was about war. Its chief concern, as was the same with Britain at the time, centered over the unavailability of Southern cotton for its textile industry. You starting to get a clear picture? Lincoln used the slaves as a strategy to try and keep the Union together and try to keep Britain and France out of the war. Confederate diplomats, I don't remember his first name, Slidell, had not been accepted as an ambassador in Paris, but he did go so far as to propose to ship raw cotton to France if Napoleon would recognize Richmond and provide warships to break the Union blockade. The fall of New Orleans to Union forces that was a year before the Emancipation Proclamation, 1862. That evaporated any French thought of entertaining his proposal. Britain, at the same time, as well as France, had thoughts of, maybe we ought to commit ourselves to the Southern cause. The Emancipation Proclamation simply gave both powers an added reminder that staying out of the American conflict would, in the long run, be the best thing for both Britain and France. So, for him, the Emancipation Proclamation, oh my God, he's the one that freed the slaves. He cared more. It was a military strategy to keep Britain and France out of the war. Freeing slaves had nothing to do with the Civil War initially. They were trying to keep the Union together. And then after a while, they thought, okay, let's give this a moral overtone. And at the same time, since both countries had outlawed slavery, Britain and France, let's make sure they don't get involved with us. That's what it was about. It's not necessarily how history shows it, but that's what it was really about. All right. I know I burst the bubble of a lot of people out there, but it's history. Whether you like it, whether you don't, it happened. Just the way it happened. You can't take the bad things out of history and say that you have a historical perspective. You don't. You have a warm, fuzzy, feel-good, all's right with the world, birds are singing. That's not the way history works. All right, I'm Rick Roberts, 4:25 the time, News Talk, 820 WBAP. All right, 4:32 the time. That's a heck of a way to start a Monday, isn't it? Sorry, just call it like I see it. Well, Rick, don't you have any sacred cows? None. Zero. I don't carry the water for anybody, and hopefully you don't either. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm more concerned about government programs that instill in a mindset, generation after generation, that you are owed something from the federal government. You are owed housing, transportation, food, daycare. And on top of that, shoot those kids out like Pez dispensers, and we'll pay you for each kid. Yeah, kids are a cash crop now in some sectors of America. I'm more concerned about that than I am about an illegal immigrant family picking strawberries in California. You know, that's destroying the country from within. Do we ever hear about that? No, you don't. That's much more devastating, much more detrimental. And in the final analysis, much more killing of the American spirit than 11, 12, 20 million illegals. So, you know, you continue to email me, you're an illegal alien sympathizer, you're this, you're that. I know what I am. If it makes you feel better, if you need that to get through, then fine. I'm a realist. We allowed this problem to happen. We're still allowing it. We're still allowing it. We don't have a southern border. Yeah, gosh, we put a man on the moon. We've made all these advances in medical technology. We've done all this stuff, but gosh, darn it, there's just no way to create and maintain a southern border. I don't know how you do that. It's not going to be done unless you and I do it at a state level, because the feds have no concern whatsoever. You know, they'll say a few things. That's another reason that Trump is as hated in D.C. as he is every place else. He's upsetting the status quo. The status quo is, you know, Americans need to shut up, sit down, be satisfied with what they have, pay us once a year at tax time, and we'll take care of all the heavy lifting. 535 people will make all the decisions, laws, and legislation for 300 million people. That, to me, still boggles my mind. I get the current form of government. I think the founders knew what they were doing. I just didn't ever envision that we would fall as far as we've fallen. Like I said, if I, after 20 plus years in this business, if I had to find a story that epitomizes just how bad liberalism has ruined this country, it would be that affluenza kid. Killing 4 people, paralyzing another. Got 10 years probation. Probation. Couldn't even pull that off. A 6-second video appeared to show him at a party where alcohol was served, violation. 2 weeks later, he and his mom went missing. They finally found him in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. They changed their appearances, ditched their IDs, brought him back to Texas, put him in juvenile detention. His case was finally moved to adult court. There you go. There's America. There's liberalism run amok. So when it comes to the illegal immigration story, forgive me if I'm not screaming, running down the street, tearing my hair, gnashing my teeth. I'm much more concerned about what the federal government has done to this country, taking away the very spirit that built this country, the very spirit that maintains this country, the flyover states that politicians ignore. Yeah, I'm just, I know it's pretty heavy stuff for a Monday, but at the end of the day, the only people that can change this are you and me. That's it. Nobody else is going to change this. They're making too much money off of it. This is not going to be changed unless you do something. The only question that remains, are you willing to take the message? Are you willing to take the message to where it belongs? We've got kids being kids. They all want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. I did too when I was 16, 17, whatever it was. The federal government has got us right where they want us. And unless we do something, and I mean tangible, not just talk about it on a talk radio show, but you take the message to the governor. Going to the mayor of Dallas is an effort in futility. I wouldn't even waste my time. But taking the message to wherever anyone will listen, and you won't be shouted down. Because if you don't, we're going to lose this whole thing. We're very close to it now. When you've got a majority of millennials thinking socialism is the way to go, but when asked to define socialism, they can't tell you. Well, listen to Bernie Sanders, that doddering old socialist fool bumping into trees wherever he goes. If he were to run against Trump, I'm afraid he'd win. You know, the million-plus kids on Saturday didn't have a clue why they were out there. All they knew is Trump is like Hitler. Guns are bad, and the NRA is somehow responsible for school shootings. Where do you think they came up with that? You think 14, 15-year-olds are coming together as a study group and study hall and came up with that? Of course not. The left has finally successfully made their way in every nook and cranny of public education. Yes, we need campaign finance reform. Yes, we need term limits. Yes, we need to be heard by those that say they represent us, that say they work for us, but really work for themselves. We need education reform. And it shouldn't be too tough. All you have to do is teach the truth. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't fit in the curriculum. I get that. It doesn't fit in the agenda. It doesn't fit in the government narrative. But it is the truth. Forget about tearing down statues and memorials because somebody's offended. I said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. You do not have a constitutional right to not be offended. It's not in there. Look for yourself. It's not there. The founders never envisioned that we'd have so many snowflakes in this nation that we couldn't stand to see something from history that we don't agree with or makes us feel uncomfortable. I can't see that it makes me feel uncomfortable. And you need to go do an evaluation, maybe eat your Wheaties or something, because you're a weak-kneed cupcake generation. You know, I thought I'd seen everything when Trump was elected, and in colleges and universities across this once great nation, they were bringing in assistance dogs, pony rides, cupcakes, that's where it came from, hot chocolate, counselors, because these young adults, they're not kids. When you're in college, you're not a kid emotionally. Mentally, you may be, but chronologically, you're not. They couldn't deal with the loss to Trump. Now, think about this. What was life like when you were going to college? I was working 2 jobs and 1.3, trying to work in my classes each semester around my jobs. I didn't have time to go on a pony ride or pet a dog or get a cup of hot chocolate at the student union or be comforted by some free-to-be you-and-me hug-a-tree counselor. I had to work. And then I had to take advantage of the time that I had in school. Well, Rick, that was back then, way back then. The spirit of America has not died, but it's losing ground fast. And unless we get control of this country once again, I'm talking about the voters. I'm not talking about the 535 people we elected to represent us that are anything but representing us. If we don't get this back, you can forget it. Go to Venezuela. Get a head start on what it's like to live in a social government. Do I sound frustrated? I am. You want to be a socialist? Yeah, it sounds great. Bernie Sanders was a socialist. We get free education. Well, where do you think, who's going to pay for that? Are professors now just going to start working for free? All utilities that go into a major college or university, it's now pro bono. They get it for nothing. Somebody's paying. Somebody's paying. They don't even know what the definition of a socialist is. They just know it's cool. And if you're a millennial, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying, wake up. Because in a couple more years, you're going to be paying for those kids coming up. And if we don't start smart, that's it. I'm frustrated, man. I don't know what to do. Like I said, I'm thinking about doing, not that I'm looking for anything else to do in my life. I've thought about doing a podcast simply on this, about what is it to be an American? What is it? What did the founders? I mean, I love the Constitution, the founding fathers. What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to have a work ethic? What does it mean not to be beholden to any level of government, city, state, federal? What does that mean? in reality. You know, from about an 18-year-old perspective forward. I mean, there's so much education that needs to be done. It doesn't do any good to take the message if you don't educate first. All right. Let me step aside very quick. We need to check your afternoon drive. Let's do that. All right, 4:49 the time. Want to get to your calls. Let's go to Mike. Mike in Keller. Mike, I appreciate your patience. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You know what? I'm not. I'm frustrated.
I know. I'm frustrated with you, and I love your show. I have to first say, I love your show. It's great listening to you every day.
Thank you.
And I'm just as frustrated with you. It's crazy because you look, and I look around, and I wonder, you know, whose fault is it? What's going on? And I have to say, it's our fault. It's being a parent. If we don't teach our kids and we don't show them what we believe and why we believe it, then they're not going to follow it. And we have parents working. They come home, let's go do this, and they throw a pile of money at them. What do we expect they're going to do? I don't want to teach my kid. Well, we'll have the government do it. We'll just throw more money at the government, let them pay for it. What do we expect? And when it comes out, that they teach them, hey, you know what? You don't have any rights. You don't have to worry about these rights. They'll be all protected. It just doesn't work that way. And there are times where I have to talk to my son, and he's in school, and he'll say, well, Dad, what about this? And then I'll have to walk him through and say, well, you know, it doesn't quite work that way. You just can't do that. Well, why? Well, because we have people in office, we vote this way, and this is how it's done. And it's crazy. I get frustrated with you, and I hear it, and I just kind of beat my head against the wall.
You know, Mike, you're right. At just about every level, there is a crisis coming, and the problem is this cradle-to-grave dependency on government, any level of government, because basically what that is, it's an affront to the four pillars of a free republic. You can't have cradle-to-grave dependency on any level of government and have the four pillars of a free republic endure. It won't work that way.
I agree completely. You know, it's always was, and I know how my dad was. I don't want nobody. You guys aren't going to take, because there were five of us growing up. He goes, you guys aren't going to take care of me. I'm going to take care of myself. I don't want the government doing it. I'll worry about that. That's my job, and that's what you're going to have to look forward to do when you grow up. You take care of your family. Once your family's grown, you have to be able to take care of yourself. And I wonder if that's what we're losing from some of these people or from the generation.
No, you're right, and it's the country, our heritage, our history, whether it makes you uncomfortable or not, our children, future generations, all of that hang in the balance. A society that does not recognize that each individual has value of his own, separate and aside from any level of government, can have no respect for the dignity of the individual and can't really know freedom. As long as you're tied at the hip to any level of government, you don't know in its fullest expanse what freedom is. You know, maybe I ought to do something tomorrow on the four pillars, which are so important, of a free republic. Do they teach that in school anymore? I don't think so. Those are the principles of economic, social responsibility, economic freedom, social responsibility, spiritual faith. I mean, that's all but gone at this point. And limited government. Those are the principles. Those are the foundations of the four pillars of a free republic. It's the American success story, or it was. You know, the details we can debate all day long. And you know what? I think we should. The details. But we should all agree on those four pillars of freedom. You have to. Everything hangs in the balance. If you want to go the way of Hugo Chavez's Venezuela, be my guest. You can stand in line for 4 hours for a roll of toilet paper if you want. I don't want to do that. And if I end up having to do that, I did it to myself. Because those 535 people in the nation's capital that make decisions, laws, principles, legislation for 300 million of us didn't get there by accident. Enough of us went to the voting booth and checked a box to put them there. Did we do everything we could possibly do to make sure they were the right people? I fear we have not. All right, that's see, I'm getting into one of those teaching modes, and it's way too late in the show to be doing that. That's going to do it for me. God's blessings on each and every one of you, whether you agree with me or not, is always my priority. Stick around. Mark Levin's next. I'll be back tomorrow at 2, your afternoon drive. I'm Rick Roberts on News Talk 820 WBAP.
Farm towns where they hit it hard till the sun goes down. Nobody really seemed to care that we were living in the middle of nowhere. We just figured that's how it was, and everybody else was just like us, soaking in the rain, baking in the sun. Don't quit till a job gets done. That's the only way I know. Don't stop till everything's gone. Straight ahead, never turn around. Don't back up, don't back down. A full throttle, wide open. You get tired and you don't show it. Dig a little deeper when you think you can't dig no more. That's the only way I know. That's the only way I know. That's the only way I know.